America. My name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live I try to do Monday and Thursday. Today's Friday. I have reasons. But today we're going to talk a little bit about athlete podcasts pushing brand deals. First of all, I love the new innovation in the world that has so many ex-athletes and even currently playing athletes like Patrick Beverley and Paul George pushing podcasts of like articulating themselves, giving the reasoning for what they're doing, and kind of reflecting, especially the ones who are recently retired, like Gilbert Arenas, reflecting on what it means to be a recently retired professional athlete. Like they've solved the money problem. Now they're just searching for meaning, but they might not be equipped for that search because everything has taught them to chase money, right? So take Jeff Teague out in Indiana. Jeff Teague, multimillionaire, he played in the league, his brother played in the league, has a lot of things to say. He's a funny guy. He coaches high school basketball in Indiana, the same high school he went to, but there's a way in which that he's just kind of sitting on money, and he's got more money than he knows what to do with, and is still trying to kind of carve out meaning in his life. And I get the sense with Gilbert Arenas is the same way. And J.D. Redick has one. Paul George has one, Paul George and Pat Beverley is interesting because they're like playing, and then we'll talk about their playing the next day in a format that hasn't been filtered by ESPN or the press. So you get a look into black masculinity in a way that I think is good and refreshing. And it's a kind of searching because they're not trying to get the money. They've solved the money problem. Someone like Pat Beverley has solved the money problem. Paul George has solved it. He doesn't do his podcast for money. Now, they still have habits, right? They still have habits that call for, brand deals and all of these other things rather than alternative financing. So, unfortunately, you get this group of athletes and ex-athletes doing podcasts and pushing gambling. They call it gaming now, but it's gambling. And I do not think that's healthy for black people to be subject to gambling advertisements from their favorite people, right? So it's a fascinating conundrum, I find, because make no mistake, with these brand deals, you are the product. You are the product. Right? They are selling you to the gambling company because Pat Beverley or Paul George or Shannon Sharp, they've rented space in your head. And you don't mind them renting space in your head, but then they bring over their friends, Underdog Gambling or some other sports gaming center, and then those places have now secreted in Trojan horse their way into your head. And that is unfortunate and you could see this kind of conflicted in someone like Jeff Teague, who I wouldn't be surprised if he just didn't gamble really at all and isn't really that big of a fan of it, but still has to pretend and knows that it's not good for black people, but still has to take the brand sponsorship because the 520 podcast, he kind of thinks that's just what you're supposed to do, take the brand deals. First of all, that's why I like being funded by you. So if you support me doing what I'm doing, go ahead and go to www.funkyacademic.com, kick in $5, $15, $50, and I'll keep kind of dispensing the quality of wisdom that you won't find every day in your life. Every Monday and Friday. Monday I do more of a relationship show. Monday and Thursday I do more of a politics show. But what I want to talk about is these people who are embracing brand deals. You are the product. They're not selling brands to you. They're selling you to the brand. They already have you. That's why you're tuning in. They're selling you to the brand. Like, you're the hoe. So you have to understand that brand deals are ethically dubious when you understand that you, the client, the people who watch this, are the product, right? So I want to reiterate that I am a huge fan of just the idea of athletes doing podcasts, both former and retired, because they go through existential crisis because they've been taught that they want to win and they've been taught that they want money, but now they have money and they have either won or they didn't win, but now they have to figure out how to create meaning out of all of their free time, and how to be relevant in a world that when they can't shoot. Turns out that Gilbert Arenas can't shoot anymore. But he still has ideas and still has stuff to say. I'm joking. Gil, you just had a bad day. Gilbert had a wonderful idea for a shootout. And the thing about a shootout is it's just you bring in all these shooters and then they shoot for prizes and tiers. And to be a good shooter, you don't have to be 6'4". You don't have to be a freakish athlete. You just have to practice this one skill that everyone can do. And depending on the distance, and the narrowness of the skills, women do as well as men. So, a lot of women have had to work on their shooting, their three-point shooting, in the way that someone like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar never really had to. Even DeMarcus Cousins, right? So, you have to understand that guys like Gilbert Arenas still have ideas and really good ideas. And the shooting competition was I think a wonderful idea. And it could actually be like American Idol, where you get some random Mormon in Utah who's done nothing for the last 20 years except shoot to get peace from his 18 kids. And he's now he's got a chance for $1 million by being the best three-point shooter in the area, right? And then another some hard Scrabble high school athlete out in Philadelphia who's just been shooting to while away the pain instead of drinking. And so you have all these possible stories that could be a wonderful entertainment experience if you put $1 million for the person who makes the most threes or does the shootout or the most middies, mid-range jump shots. So I like where Gilbert's mind's at. But how long is it going to be before he starts? Oh, it's already branded by and sponsored by a gambling company, right? So you have these NBA players or NFL players actually thinking through their craft in a kind of novel way, because it's no longer about winning, or it's no longer about money. It's just about how they're reflecting on life once they've solved the winning and the money problem, and coming up with interesting answers while reflecting on what the game meant to them and how they prepare their game or how they prepare their kids for the game. All of it interesting. And you don't really have space for black men to do this who've actually done something and are both opining and have actually, you've been to all-star games. Right? So he's actually done the work. So we don't really have places for black men to do this. But the problem is they do it by selling their audience, which is going to be other black people, to the gaming companies. Because with these brand deals, and I can't reiterate this enough, with these gaming companies, you are the product. The ambassador is selling you to them. They're not selling them to you. They're selling you to them to live in your head. And now Underdog Gaming lives in my head. Right? Because I want to see Gilbert Arenas, shootout. Right? So I do think the innovation of having athletes actually articulate and talk without ESPN or some media middleman is actually a wonderful thing for the sports mind and just the way we think about the way the will is realized in the world. Because make no mistakes, that's what, maybe I'll do a different show about this. I will do a different show about this in defense of sports. Sports are the way that which the will is realized in the world. And it takes many mediations. Sometimes it takes weight classes. Sometimes it takes to get an expression of pure unadulterated will takes a triple distilling process. And that's what sports provide. And so if you actually are interested in how the will is expressed in the world, looking at sports is not the worst way. And how it's mediated, because in order to get a pure a pure appreciation of the wills involved, you have to get rid of all the external determinations from nature. So you need weight classes, you need different positions, you need different kind of sports, all just to get to this kind of triple distilled experience of the will being realized in the world, the will to win. So you have to actually it takes a lot of machinations in order to get to free expressions of the will, which is also the same thing about politics and about anything meaningful in your life. It doesn't come naturally, and it's not expressed naturally. It takes all of this thought and legislation and umpires and all of this to get what we're really trying to get to, which is a realization and an experience of the will. An expression of the will, and we want to be to witness that, and that's what we ultimately want to judge. And that will is not just experienced in the moment, is expressed in the moment, but is also the accumulation of all those days willing in practice and willing in drawing up the charts. So all of those are expressed in the moment. All of those mediations are expressed in the moment. It's not just we come out there to do something. No, we come out there to see the accumulation of the will is realized in all of these cultural, concrete structures, like the Georgia football program. Like when you go to see a system quarterback play and win, you're impressed with the quarterback, but you're impressed with the system and all of the ingenuity that went into formulating a system and then realizing that system to victory. Right? So I do think, when I was a kid, probably from high school, I listened to Jim Rome a lot. I'm from Southern California. Some people from Southern California. Well, Jim Rome's famous now, but when I know him, he was just he was the brashest, loudest smack talker in Southern California. I'm of the age who saw Jim Rome in The Incident, where he called Jim Everett Chris Everett repeatedly, and Jim Everett said, "Don't do that." Jim Everett was the quarterback of the Rams at the time, and Jim Rome did it one more time, and I just remember Jim Everett throwing the table and going right after Jim Rome's on the deuce, and then him talking about it on talk radio for the next few months as The Incident, and it was fantastic. It was an expression of Jim Rome's will, just in a non-obvious setting that he would call Jim Everett Chris Everett. So I am a fan of podcasts. I think free the mouths of the people and let them tell on themselves and let them give us insight into what allowed them to be in a way that's not mediated by the usual mediators. Now, unfortunately, it's mediated by, the needs of the gaming company. But really, these guys don't need the money. I really think they're taking the advertisements in this way out of habit. So I think we're going to see alternative funding models, or maybe nonprofit funding models that they don't need the money. Gilbert Arenas has more money than sense. Paul George does not need the money. Patrick Beverly, he doesn't need the money, right? So they just need to not lose too much money while making kind of like this. Well, I actually appreciate the money. It's what it sends my kids to camp and stuff like that, and helps grow the channel and all these other things. Paid for advertising. Also, by the way, I am looking for a clipper. I want to put some of these clips onto the social media, except I also want to finish my dissertation and raise my kids and all these other things. So I need someone else to go through shows and clip them up for the TikTok and the Instagram. I'm looking for a social media manager, but I need a clipper, someone who's good at that. And I know that the skill set's generally diffused because of all of these people doing TikTok. I do have a subscription to Descript, a clipping software, which actually just allows you to clip from the transcript that it generates, and it does a lot of work for you, but it still takes more time. And if you work for me, you get, and we gin up these subscriptions, you eat what you kill. So if I get more subscribers, you'll get a pretty good chunk. So if you are interested in that, go ahead and email IRAMI, that's IRAMI, at funkyacademic.com. Once again, that's IRAMI, IRAMI, at funkyacademic.com. And let's create some nuggets together. And so tell your friends. And if you've been with my show, you know that I say some things, and I want you to get the most provocative kinds of things that I say. And I want, honestly, over the last, I got a 10 year, not 10 years, but I have a good have a good backlog. So like we could be releasing 2 or 3 1-minute clips every day for like, you know, and build up the viewership that way. And I want, you know, and all you have to do is have an eye for the most provocative points, and you can't be too scared. I want you to put the scariest stuff on there. I say some scary things. All right. By the way, yeah, I see some people in the chat. I see some people in the chat have responded. I'll hit you back, and let's make this happen. I'd like a backlog and just set them on an automatic release twice a day for the next infinity. That would be fantastic. But as it stands, I can't even keep up with releasing the podcast, except like when I get insomnia. And then I do it as a backlog. All right. So thank you for your time. I will talk to you at another time. Peace.